Life can change in the time it takes to breathe. 6 months ago, my world stopped. My sister Sarah was watching my 5-year-old son Leo at the lake. She's the most careful person I know. But a free current, a split-second distraction, and he was gone. The police called it a tragic accident. No one was at fault. But try telling that to my wife, Elena. Dramatic pause. Elena hasn't looked at my sister since the funeral. She scrubbed Sarah out of every family photo. She blocked her number. She acts like Sarah is a monster who did this on purpose. Last night I was sitting in the kitchen and I got a text from Sarah. It was just a picture of a drawing Leo made for her. A little stick figure family under a bright yellow sun. I started crying. I couldn't help it. Micro pause. Elena walked in, saw the screen, and her face just turned to stone. She didn't scream. She didn't throw anything. She just sat down across from me and whispered, "I can't heal," while you're still holding on to the person who broke us. I tried to explain. I told her, "Elena, she's my sister. She's grieving too. She's dying inside every single day." But Elena just shook her head. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "If you go to her birthday dinner next week, do not bother coming back to this house. I cannot be married to someone who chooses his sister's comfort over his wife's." Sanity. Long, dramatic pause. I'm standing in the middle of a bridge that's burning on both ends. How do I choose between the woman I promised my life to and the sister I grew up with, who is the only other person on earth who loves Leo as much as I do? I feel like
I used to think my father-in-law, Arthur, was just old school. But lately, it felt like he was trying to rewrite my 8-year-old son, Leo. Arthur lives for the classic gentleman's club in our town. Tailored suits, golf Sundays, and very strict ideas about what a boy should be. Leo? Well, Leo wants to be a marine biologist, and he spends most of his time catching specimens in the creek behind our house. Last week, it went way too far. Arthur volunteered for the 3rd grade field trip to the local aquarium. I thought, hey, it's just fish, right? Wrong. When I picked Leo up, he was in tears. He told me that while the other kids were doing the behind-the-scenes Shark Tank tour, Arthur had convinced the teacher to let Leo stay back, to help him polish the brass plaques in the lobby. Arthur told him that real men don't get their sleeves wet for a few bottom feeders. I was seething. My kid had been looking forward to that tour for a month. The breaking point? Saturday morning. I walked into the mudroom to find Arthur trying to hide Leo's favorite pair of salt-stained muddy hiking boots. He'd replaced them with these stiff, narrow leather loafers. He actually told me he'll thank me when he carries himself like a proper young man. I didn't lose it. I just took the loafers, walked to the outdoor bin, and dropped them in. I told Arthur, right then and there, in this house, we don't raise proper boys. We raise curious ones. I banned him from school events. Now, Arthur is telling the whole neighborhood that I'm stifling his discipline. But you know what? Yesterday, Leo waded waist deep into the marsh, and he didn't look back once.
My daughter, Jules, was what teachers politely call a handful. By the time she hit middle school, she had a permanent seat in Saturday detention and a reputation for being icy. She didn't care about trends, she didn't care about fitting in, and she definitely didn't care about being nice to the popular crowd. Last Tuesday, I got a call from the principal. My heart literally sank to my stomach. I thought, here we go again. What did she break this time? But when I walked into that office, the principal wasn't angry. She looked shaken. She told me that during lunch, a boy named Toby, who's known for being incredibly shy and on the spectrum, had finally worked up the nerve to sit at the cool kids' table. He just wanted to show them his new drawing, something he'd worked on for weeks. The table went quiet. One of the star athletes looked at the drawing, laughed, and tossed it into a puddle of spilled chocolate milk. The whole cafeteria just stared. Nobody moved. Toby was standing there, his face turning bright red, looking like his entire world had just collapsed. That's when Jules stood up. Now, Jules is the girl who usually scares people off with one look. She walked straight over to that table, and for a second, everyone thought she was going to finish Toby off. Instead, she reached into the puddle, picked up the soggy drawing, and looked that athlete right in the eye. She didn't scream, she didn't fight. She just said, in this voice that was cold as stone, "This is better than anything you've ever done in your entire boring life." Then she turned to Toby, grabbed her own lunch tray, and sat down right next to him. She pulled out a pen, started fixing the edges of the drawing, and began asking him about the characters. Within 2 minutes, 3 other misfit kids had joined them. By the end of lunch, Toby wasn't crying. He was beaming. The principal looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "Your daughter didn't just stop a bully today. She started a movement." I walked out of that school feeling like I didn't know my own kid, and honestly, I've never been more proud to be her mom.
The day I graduated from college, my parents didn't bring flowers. They brought a bill. They sat me down in our cramped kitchen in Ohio, pushed a yellow legal pad across the table, and told me I owed them $84,000. The cost of my upkeep, they called it. If I didn't pay, well, don't bother coming home for Thanksgiving. I walked out that door with a single suitcase and a heart made of ice. For 15 years, I worked 3 jobs, lived on generic ramen, and climbed the corporate ladder in Chicago until I finally made it. I was the CEO of my own firm. I had the penthouse, the car, and the peace of mind. Or so I thought. Then, last Tuesday, they showed up at my office. My mother looked at my mahogany desk and sighed. "Oh, Sarah, we always knew you'd be successful." My father didn't even say hello. He just looked at the view and muttered, "Must be nice to be so comfortable while your parents are struggling." They weren't there to apologize. They were there to collect interest. "We need $250,000, my dad said, leaning back like he owned the place. "For the emotional labor of raising a daughter who abandoned them." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just pulled a dusty yellow legal pad out of my bottom drawer. "You're right, Dad," I whispered, the silence in the room feeling heavy. "Family is all about debts." I slid a check across the desk for exactly $84,000. Not a penny more. "Consider the bill paid," I said, my voice steady as a rock. "But don't forget, once a debt is settled, the contract is over." I watched the color drain from their faces as security escorted them out. I guess some things just aren't for sale.